Welcome to ABC News Live. I'm Diane Macedo. Top stories today are the country's farewell to Senator John McCain. We have some emotional images from a service to him last night, as well as a look ahead to the other services planned. And we're also looking at some new fallout in the Catholic Church. New priests removed amid sexual abuse investigations. We have the latest on that from the Vatican. But first, here are your headlines.
Three of the adults arrested at a New Mexico compound where kids were found starving have been released. A judge says prosecutors missed a deadline.
You may recall the story of a woman seen ringing the doorbell of a Texas home in the dead of night and then disappearing. Deputies say she's a domestic abuse survivor who escaped a home where a man was found dead of an apparent suicide.
Investigators found probable cause of the captain of a tour boat that sank in Missouri last month, killing 17 people, committed misconduct and negligence. Supporters would say this is how Stand Your Ground is supposed to work. Polk County, Florida authorities say an Uber driver with a fare shot and killed the driver of a pickup truck that, after trailing the Uber, cut him off, began threatening him, claiming to have a gun. Sheriff Grady Judge says the dead man had left a bar after a fight with his girlfriend, mistakenly thinking she was the passenger of the Uber driver.
A former Dallas area cop has been sentenced to 15 years behind bars. Roy Oliver was sentenced of killing an unarmed black teenager. DA Faith Johnson.
We want to say to people like a Roy Oliver, if you go out and you murder anybody, we're committed to making certain that we prosecute people like that.
And we begin today with the country's farewell to Senator John McCain. This morning, a memorial service will be held ahead of services at the U.S. Capitol and National Cathedral. Later this week, Terry Moran is in Phoenix for us. And Terry, I know there was a service for him at the Arizona Capitol last night, and the images were just heart-wrenching to see his family at his casket.
It really was, Diane. And an image from late last night, some of John McCain's children greeting at 8:30 in the night a few of the thousands, 15,000 people who filed past, waited in line for hours and filed past to pay their respects to John McCain. And today, as you mentioned here, you can already see the mourners filing into the North Phoenix Baptist Church. This is the church the McCain family's worshiped at for 25 years. It's where his younger children were baptized, and it's where thousands of people will gather to say a final Arizona farewell to John McCain. It's a service that he planned, as he planned this whole week so carefully, to mix both his personal life, his life here in Arizona, and his life on the national stage. One of the readings here will be delivered by his daughter Bridget, who he and his wife Cindy adopted from Bangladesh. And among the eulogists, the great wide receiver Larry Fitzgerald, one of John McCain's favorite players on his beloved Arizona Cardinals, and also on the Washington side of his life, a political opponent he clashed with for decades, really, Joe Biden, who also is a dear friend. And that will be, in some ways, the highlight, I think, for the country of this memorial service. John McCain planned these whole series of events this week over the last months of his life, almost as if it was a final campaign and a final message to the American people that patriotism can transcend political differences and that public service is honorable, those values that he lived his life by.
Yeah, Terry, so sad to lose him, but interesting of how he got to put his stamp on exactly how the country says goodbye to him. What do we know about these services coming up later on in the week as well?
Well, today, John McCain will leave Arizona for the last time. He'll be flown on a military plane that President Trump has authorized to Washington, D.C., where he will process to the rotunda of the United States Capitol. There will be a service there tomorrow. He'll lie in state, and people in Washington, people from around the country, can pay their respects there. And then the final national goodbye to John McCain, a celebration and memorial of his life at the National Cathedral on Saturday. His two hand-picked eulogists there, former Presidents George W. Bush and Barack Obama, two men who defeated him in his races for the presidency, nevertheless, who were close to him, once again sending a signal about the kind of politics that he believed in, that he lived, that he thinks America can continue to live by.
All right, that's Terry Moran for us in Phoenix, Arizona, and we will have full coverage of that service to John McCain today at 1 p.m. Eastern Time right here on ABC News Live. Moving on now to the White House, the president was very busy on Twitter this morning going after the media and the Russia probe. Alex Malin has the latest on that. Alex, president seems a little upset this morning.
Yeah, 11 tweets in a span of about 2 hours, Diane, and it looks more like a warm-up act ahead of his visit to Indiana later today. He's going to be appearing at a campaign rally there this evening. The president is tweeting about lashing out at news organizations who have covered the departure of his longtime White House counsel Don McGahn, in a pair of tweets that seem to sort of contradict each other. This first one where he says Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner had nothing to do with the so-called pushing out of Don McGahn. It contradicts this tweet that you see right up there on the screen. That says the rigged Russia witch hunt did not come into play even a little bit with respect to, quote, my decision on Don McGahn. Now, those words, my decision, now it's starting to raise eyebrows here at the White House with reporters questioning, well, yesterday the official line of the White House was that Don McGahn, this was his decision, and according to our reporting, actually, Don McGahn had planned to depart from the White House following what they hope will be the confirmation of Supreme Court what they will hope to be the next Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. But that's not the only tweet that's raising eyebrows here at the White House, among the White House press corps this morning. This tweet about NBC News, he's lashing out at NBC News, and he talks about his interview with Lester Holt last year. And he says, when Lester Holt got caught fudging my tape on Russia, they were hurt badly. Now, that portion is kind of scratching heads here at the White House. It's unclear exactly what the president is referring to here. Now, we have asked the White House about that, but he might be referencing his interview with Lester Holt following his firing of James Comey last year. You'll remember when the president was explaining his reasoning for firing James Comey, he said that Russia was on his mind when he made that final decision. Now, the president has previously pushed back that was the reason, but this is the first time that he or anybody else in the White House seems to be claiming that might be a doctored sort of tape, but that is the first time that we've ever heard that from the White House, if that is what he's referring to here. All
right, and Alex, I know the president was also asked about the federal response to Hurricane Maria after Puerto Rico revised its death toll to nearly 3,000. I want you to take a listen to his response to that.
Yeah, I think we did a fantastic job in Puerto Rico. We're still helping Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico had a lot of difficulties before it got hit, and we're straightening out those difficulties even now.
And how's that response being received, Alex?
I mean, the president's statement that the response was terrific is definitely receiving a little bit of backlash, especially from San Juan's Mayor Carmen Yulín Cruz, who said in a statement, President Trump continues to demonstrate his inability to understand what his job in this crisis was all about. This was never about him. This was never about politics. This was about saving lives. His lack of sensibility is beyond offensive. 2,975 people died because of his inability to get the job done. Now, you'll remember that President Trump and Mayor Cruz engaged in that very public, bitter feud last year when she criticized the president for not being quick enough in getting relief to Puerto Rico. Now, the president at the time said that she had very poor leadership ability and accused Puerto Rican officials for not being quick enough to help themselves there. But the president was repeatedly tried to brush off any criticism that this is in any way a comparable situation to what President Bush faced with Hurricane Katrina, even as this new estimated death toll far exceeds that of what was estimated to have happened out of Hurricane Katrina. But for his part, Puerto Rico's governor, Ricardo Rosselló, said in announcing these numbers that, yes, I made mistakes, and he said we could have done things differently. But the president there, answering questions on this yesterday, in the past he said that the White House response was a 10 out of 10. Those comments yesterday saying it was terrific seems to indicate that he's not going to be changing his position on that.
Yeah, one of the criticisms was comparing how much more quickly Florida and Texas bounced back from the storms that they dealt with compared to Puerto Rico. The president's response was that Puerto Rico is a different situation, it being an island, and their own economic problems made it a little bit more difficult there. But this probably won't be the last we hear on this issue. Alex Malin from the White House. Thanks, Alex. And now to a different storm in Florida, a firestorm having to do with the governor's race. The Republican candidate is now facing accusations of making racially insensitive comments targeting his African-American opponent, just 1 day after the primary there. Victor Oquendo is in Miami with the latest on that.
Diane, this race between two very different candidates is just getting started, but already we have a controversy. Just hours after Andrew Gillum became Florida's first ever African-American nominee for governor, his Republican opponent, Ron DeSantis, went on the attack. On Fox News, DeSantis said, "The last thing we need to do is to monkey this up by trying to embrace a socialist agenda." DeSantis also called Gillum articulate. Well, the backlash to those comments, especially the monkey this up line, was instant. The head of Florida's Democratic Party declaring it's disgusting that Ron DeSantis is launching his general election campaign with racist dog whistles. Even Fox News chiming in saying we do not condone this language. But Team DeSantis says he was referring to Gillum's policies, calling the claims of racism, quote, absurd. Congressman DeSantis winning the nomination powered by his allegiance to President Trump. And when asked on Wednesday about DeSantis' comments, the president said he had not heard them, but praised the congressman, calling him extraordinary, saying he would make a fantastic governor. Overnight, Gillum responded to his opponent, not mincing words, saying in part that DeSantis has apparently given up the whistle. They've gone to the bullhorn with these kinds of tactics. He says that this is a page from President Trump's playbook. Diane?
All right, Victor Oquendo from Miami. Thanks, Victor. And coming up, new priests removed from their service to the Catholic Church as the Pope faces calls for his own removal. We'll be right back.
ABC News, straightforward.
Almost every home here has sustained damage from this storm.
The roof is like 3 houses down, and the roof's, I think it's right there.
We're glad you're okay.
Oh, thank you.
You can see the police barricade. You can hear the gunfire just around this wall, these extremists. So this is one of those checks. And around the corner here are the children. What's your name?
Tonight, several developing stories as we come on the air.
Back on the job.
Yeah, back in the job.
I'll build my country back.
You've been doing it this way for more than 100 years. It's that important to you. How are you?
How you doing?
Good to see you. Good to see you.
ABC's World News Tonight with David Muir is America's most watched newscast, and we thank you.
So good.
Hello.
Ooh. Now this girl be doing her own thing, and this girl ain't never the same. Look at this. It's just one click away.
It has everything right there.
Oh, the wellness section. Any exercise that I can find, I'm just like, yes, thank you, thank you, thank you.
I love the deals and steals. I am a foodie, so I do love the foodie stuff. I'm new to cooking, so getting these easy recipes has been super sweet.
The lifestyle pieces are really cool.
Amazing.
The new GoodMorningAmerica.com.
GoodMorningAmerica.com.
I love it, and they love it.
I've never seen nothing like this. Can I get an amen?
Oh yeah, girl, I'm down with it.
The new GoodMorningAmerica.com.
It's with me all day.
You've never seen nothing like this. So go snap.
Welcome back to ABC News Live. Let's get right to that new fallout at the Catholic Church. Several new priests have been removed from their parishes amid sexual abuse investigations. This as the Pope is facing calls for him to step down. Our own David Wright is at the Vatican covering it all for us. And David, what do we know so far about these priest removals?
Hi, Diana. These are in the Diocese of Greensburg, Pennsylvania, near Pittsburgh. Fathers Joseph Bonifed and Father, I'm going to double check the name here, David Gillis. He's since moved on to Orlando, Florida, but used to be a priest in that diocese. Both of them, the diocese has received credible allegations that they may have abused a minor. The procedure in these cases now, moving forward, is to notify the civil authorities so that they can conduct an investigation, remove the priest immediately from the parish. Now, both of these men have not been charged with any crimes, but we'll have to see.
And I know there are reports that 2 new priests have also been removed in New Jersey, David. So it seemed like the dominoes here continue to fall. Of course, this all comes as the Pope is facing allegations of not doing enough, particularly in the case of a cardinal being accused of sexual abuse allegations. And we haven't heard a lot, or almost anything really, from the Pope in response to the accusations against him. But we also haven't heard much from the Archbishop, who's bringing those accusations against him and calling for the Pope's resignation. Is that unusual?
It's unusual. I mean, the church moves at its own pace, and Vatican infighting usually takes place completely behind closed doors. This has played out very much in public, but frustratingly, we haven't been able to address questions to either side. There was one new development from inside the Vatican today. The Vatican Secretary of State, Cardinal Pietro Parolin, came out and clarified yet again that the Pope is at peace even as he continues his job. Yesterday, you'll remember there was the papal spokesman clarified that he's not embittered, as was previously reported in the newspaper. So the Secretary of State says the Pope is at peace, but the Church, the Vatican, is embittered.
Yeah, that indeed. And more to come on this, I'm sure. David Wright there from the Vatican. A lot going on there these days. David, thank you so much. And now it's time for the weather as the Midwest deals with some flooding. The East is bracing for some weekend storms, but also some cooler temperatures. Ginger Z has the forecast for us from the Weather Center. Ginger?
Diane, thank you. Let's go ahead and get into those weather headlines. And the 6 feet above record flood stage at the Kickapoo River in Wisconsin, that's leading us off because the images coming from there in central Wisconsin are horrible to see. Neighborhoods completely underwater. Watch for more rain in the forecast, unfortunately. On Friday, severe storms will come along with some of that heavy rain. Minneapolis is in there, Mason City, Iowa, and Des Moines. So this is the region that we'll have to watch for damaging winds. But of course, when you have a storm come through, it can drop 1 to 2 inches very quickly. Some places in northern Missouri come up with close to 6 by the time we reach Saturday. Now, let's look at the other front that moved through, or is moving through in the Northeast. Elmira, New York, lightning images, stunning, but also some damage that came along with that. And those strong storms will be moving to the southeast. It's going to break up this heat, which we still have heat advisories. Boston actually hit a daily record high of 98. Remember that number, 98 in Boston. That was on Wednesday. Now, by Friday, the cold front sweeps in, and you are going to feel it. It is going to feel downright chilly. And look at the numbers there, 72 for a high temperature for Boston. Their low temperature wasn't even that earlier this week. New York in the 70s. Remember, some of this does come with rainfall, so it's not the perfect way to kick off the holiday weekend. Diane.
All right, we won't blame you for that, Ginger. Ginger Z from the Weather Center, thanks as always. And we just want to remind you again that tribute to John McCain, the service for him today being held, will be streamed here at ABC News Live for all of you to watch. That happens today starting at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And of course, as always, you can catch the day's headlines all day long at abcnews.com and at your ABC News app. For ABC News Live, I'm Diane Macedo. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great Thursday.